If you've been wondering what's been happening behind the scenes of the Korean beauty industry, from lawsuits to exports, new retailers and product trends, then you are in the right place. Stick around, because on today's episode, we have some major industry tea. Hello and welcome to the Korean Beauty Show podcast. I am your host, Lauren Lee, founder of K-Beauty consultancy Style Story and Korean skincare brand Jellyco. Welcome back. This is our news update special episode. If you are a regular listener of the show, you will already be familiar with this. Basically, every second episode is where we break down the biggest stories that are shaking up the Korean beauty industry. And I feel like I say this every time, but there really is always a lot going on. And let us jump straight into something that a lot of people on social media were, let's just say, they had a lot of thoughts about this. And that is the news that Olive Young lost an infringement lawsuit over a house-branded product. So let me break this down for you. Olive Young, if you are not already familiar with them, is pretty much the last man standing in the offline Korean beauty retail space in Korea at the moment. So once upon a time, back in the day, the offline scene, bricks and mortar here in Korea, was very, very vibrant. There were a lot of different retailers. So we had what was called the Roadhouse brands, road stores, which were all of the legacy Korean beauty stores like Misha, Skin Food, Nature Republic, Innisfree, Etude House, lots and lots of different brands that all had their own standalone stores. Then we had a whole heap of different retailers where you could go and pick up lots of different things. So once upon a time, we used to have Watson's. We also had a place called Lops, Love, Health and Beauty. We had, I'm definitely missing one now. We had more. But essentially what has happened is, over the years, the pool of different brick and mortar retailers has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And the pandemic was kind of like the final nail in the coffin for a lot of offline retailers. They shut down, and essentially we ended up with this monopoly by a company called Olive Young that is owned by CJ Retail, which is one of the huge conglomerates here in Korea. And it's become a little bit of I guess a giant. Sephora exited the market semi-recently, and so really Olive Young is the only real big player when it comes to purchasing products offline in Korea. And because of that, they have gotten, a reputation, and a lot of people, foreigners, when they hear about Korea and going shopping in Korea, they want to go and check out Olive Young. But what a lot of people don't realize is that's pretty much all there is to check out. So if you speak to old timers and people that have been in the industry for a long time, a lot of people have thoughts, let's just say, about Olive Young and about the fact that they really are the only viable option. And so this news came about that Olive Young was sued and lost a product design infringement case brought on by a smaller Korean cosmetics company. And why this is kind of groundbreaking is that, number one, with that history that I have just kind of gone through, that this is like one of the few key retail channels left in Korea for a smaller brand. There are not too many brands that, even if they had grievances with Olive Young, would think that it was a good idea to go ahead and sue them, because you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot there. If you sue them, you're definitely not going to have your products sold there, right? That's kind of like you done forever. There are other countries in the world, Australia being one of them, where it is kind of a monopoly. Like, if you don't like the key players, there aren't too many places left for you to go. So, that doesn't tend to happen in bigger markets like in the States. You guys have so many different options over there. There are, a million different places that you could try and get your products stocked. And I know that that's the case in many other countries as well. The UAE, Europe has a few more retailers than that, or a few more sort of viable options. But this company, essentially what happened was they came up with a face mask that was a bit innovative, and it had a very particular shape to it. And it was essentially designed to sort of, pull and lift the face up. It's a sheet mask sort of thing. So any lifting effect, I'm sure, would have been temporary. But suffice it to say that they came up with this, they launched it, and they were doing well with their sales. And one of that brand's customers was shopping in Olive Young a little while later, and she noticed a product that to her eyes, for all intents and purposes, was exactly the same as this indie beauty brand's product. And she let them know, I've seen this, did you know about this? And they were obviously shocked and horrified, to the point where they decided that they were going to have to fight back. And so they took them to court, essentially, which is, it's a big deal going to court. It's not something that you want to do. But their sales were so substantially impacted by this. It essentially cut their sales, right? Because the Olive Young version was a lot cheaper and obviously a lot more accessible, being that they have storefronts literally all over the entire country. So this was a little bit of a landmark decision in that respect. It's not like it's the first time that anyone's ever been sued for this kind of thing, but the court ruled basically that their private label lifting this mask was substantially identical to the original product that was created and launched by the indie brand, and they were ordered to halt manufacturing, stop sales, and destroy, and that's it, you can't do this anymore. So Olive Young came out and said that they will comply with the ruling, but they deny any intent to copy, which, okay, that's the party line there. But I think this is a really, really tough one, because on the one hand, you want to sort of, congratulate the indie beauty brand for fighting back, and obviously copying is a huge problem in the beauty industry. And I think this case, the company released their financials, and you can see this completely financially devastated them. Any sort of momentum that they had with this new product was completely wiped once the copy was launched, and they pretty much lost all of their sales. So the damage is real. I think they ended up losing 90% of their sales. So it's great that I guess that they've had some relief, but you're really stuck between a rock and a hard place if this happens to you as a small brand, because what can you do now? You've won the fight, but have you lost the war? Because you've now effectively, won yourself out of a potential stockist. I'm not saying that Olive Young would have ever stocked their product, but obviously I doubt that they're going to have very cordial relations going forward. It's just a bad situation all round. And a couple of people, when I shared this on TikTok, well, actually a lot of people saw this. I think 300,000 people or saw this. So a lot of people had thoughts about this, but people were kind of saying I didn't realize that Olive Young had so many in-house brands. And I guess that is the other problem with having a monopoly, right? Is that you can just launch all of your own brands. And I guess there is more incentive to do stuff like this, and just, you see what's performing well for another brand and you're like, well, why don't we just make that? We've already got all of the ODM channels set up. We're able to, get products to market really quickly. Clearly they have the capital to be able to pull off something like this. So it's just a bad story all around. And, the news channel that originally reported it obviously went and spoke to the company founder. And I just felt so bad for her, because I can only imagine, and some of the people when I posted this were saying, but you got to have patents and stuff like that in place. I'm yep, that's all fine and good. This wasn't actually a patent case. It was done under a law that they have in Korea, particular legislation around copying. So that kind of made it a little bit easier in this case. But yeah, it's just never a good thing. If something like this happens to you, it's just a headache from go to woe, I'm sure. So that was making news in the industry. Olive Young, obviously a very, very big player. So to see them be caught out like this is surprising, because it's do you really need to go to those lengths? You are already the only guy left. You have your own brands. You pretty much have a monopoly on the market at this point. Is that strictly necessary then to be infringing off smaller indie beauty brands, whether they intended to or not? I know they say that they didn't intentionally do that. That's fine if we take them at their word, but it's just not a great situation. Anyway, so that kind of leads on into the next piece of news that I saw that maybe is a little bit surprising. So according to Korea's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, which is essentially our version of the FDA, it is the body that regulates the industry here in Korea, 8,831 cosmetic brands shut down in Korea in 2024, which is nearly 10 times more than 5 years ago. So it's kind of a surprising statistic if you look at that just sort of as a number. Like, wow, that is a whole lot of brands. And, you know, I had some people sort of reaching out to me when I shared this, and they were like, well, who are the brands? Is there a list? Like, obviously there is a list on the MFDS's website. If you could be bothered going on, it's in Korean, they publish it. You can go in and have a look who they are. Like, I think the vast majority of them are going to be people that you've not heard of before. But I think the bigger, broader thing is to take a look at, like, what is driving all of these collapses? What is going on? Because you might be like, oh, well, that's a sign that things aren't too rosy in the K-beauty industry. And that's just not true. Like, we've never been more successful. We have never hit the kind of production numbers that we're hitting as an industry. We have never hit the export numbers that we're hitting as an industry. Like, 2025 is probably the biggest the industry has been and the most successful that it has been since the early 2010s. So that is not what's going on here. I think the bigger problem, what is really driving this, is obviously we have a really great local manufacturing scene here in Korea, but that can lead to an over-reliance on, you know, the local manufacturers, on white labeling and things like this. So white labeling, it's not a dirty word, but what it is kind of taking an off-the-shelf solution that a lab has already come up with. So they might have, you know, a base sunscreen formula, for example, or a base serum or something like that. And you can kind of put your own flavor on that product and bring it to market very, very quickly because they've already done all the testing. They already have the product there. You can just make a few little tweaks. Like, if you decide that your brand concept is, I don't know, snail mucin, and you just pop a little bit of snail mucin in there and Bob's your uncle, you've got your serum, you've got an essence, you've got a whatever else you want straight off the shelf. So I think a lot of brands are using that as kind of like a quick way to get to market. So they're really focusing on branding rather than product development. And obviously, if you are doing that, just taking an off-the-shelf solution, you know, there's minimal R&D investment, but you're also not really doing anything particularly special. And, you know, I was a distributor for 10 years, and I cannot tell you how many pitches, and still to this day, I'm being pitched to all the time. I field multiple emails every single day from brands trying to pitch to us. And it's just, you know, when you see presentation after presentation and it's like, it's the same product. Like, I've seen this product not tens of times, hundreds of times. Like, does the world really need another whatever it is, essence or serum, you know, like with whatever ingredient it is? And so I think that is more of the problem. Like, rather than coming up with, or, you know, knowing the industry intimately enough to be able to identify true gaps in the market or be doing something that other people are not doing. It's just a whole bunch of people going, oh, well, PDRN is trending, let's jump on it. And it's like, hold on a minute, let's take a step back and take a look at what we're doing here. Does the world really need another one of these products? And look, if you're a brand that has an extremely large marketing budget, you can get away with doing this alone. Like, you can outspend everyone else. You can buy all the Google ads, all the Meta ads, and you can just bomb the market. You can seed to 100,000 influencers, and you're going to have success doing that if you've got the budget for that. But the fact of the matter is, and I think these results show, most brands don't have that. Like, it is so hard, so expensive. It is such an uphill battle to actually launch a brand with, you know, basically next to no marketing budget. So you need to be doing something a little bit different from everyone else. And I think what this kind of shows us is that in reality, in 2025, good branding or like just doing a version of what everyone else is doing is not going to get you there. You need strong formulations. You need testing, a long-term strategy. You need a market. That's the other thing. It's like, well, who are you launching this product for? You know, you need to know what that market actually really wants. I think that was like the difference when we launched our brand. We had data from tens of thousands of customers. We knew exactly what they wanted, what they didn't like, what the gap was. And I mean, for us, the gap was really, really clear. It was our customers wanted and liked what they liked, but what they didn't like was the endless trend cycle. That was the thing that we identified as being the lack of fit between K-beauty products and our original customers when we were coming up with our brand strategy. We knew that they love the products, they love the concepts, they love the ideas, but what they did not like was their holy grail product disappearing, being upgraded, changed, repackaged, made unrecognizable. That for them was a deal breaker. And so that was the brand that we then set out to give them, was something reliable, something science-backed, something that gave them the results they want, the textures they want, the packaging they wanted, but something that wasn't going to be chop and changing all the time. And that was kind of where we went with the brand. And that's a really hard thing for a K-beauty brand based in Korea, who is primarily servicing the Korean market, to achieve, because that's not the way that Korean consumers shop. They want newness. They love trends. They love change. They want something new constantly served up to them. So the brands that tend to do well in the market in Korea are brands that can do that, either from a monetary perspective, from an R&D perspective. They are constantly feeding the beast, as it were, in Korea. And that is not what foreign customers want over the long term. People love trends. They like trying new stuff, but they like to have their tried and true staple tested products that they can fall back on when, everything goes to shit, so to speak. So that was kind of where we saw the gap in the market. But and that's not to say that we're the only brand coming up with, things that fill the gap in the market. Obviously, there are plenty of brands that do that. But you kind of do need to have a little bit more of an understanding. And I think that that's where a lot of people entering the market for the first time recently have I guess, fallen apart, is that they either don't know the market really well, or they just see it as kind of like a get-rich-quick scheme. They're like, well, hey, everyone else is launching a beauty brand. Why don't I try that too? And it's just not enough, particularly not in Korea, and also not in K-beauty. There's so many brands. It's like, what are you really adding to the dialogue? Are you saying something that hasn't already been said? Are you doing something that hasn't already been done? Like, it's not that you can't launch a brand successfully in 2025, but like, you would need to have all of your ducks in a row. So I thought that was interesting news. And a lot of people in the industry have obviously been talking about it and sort of analyzing, why it's happened. But I think that in a nutshell is why. Now, in other news that is interesting, given the current climate in the US, and particularly around this issue of tariffs, is that Kolmar Korea, which is one of the biggest manufacturers in Korea, has opened their second factory in the US, located in Pennsylvania. So this is big news for two reasons. Number one, it brings their total North American production capacity to 470 million units a year, which will make it the largest cosmetics ODM operation on the continent. But it is also the first time that they have built a new factory from scratch. So this is a pretty big thing. They are calling it their tariff-safe zone for K-beauty, because essentially what it means is that brands will be able to manufacture directly in the US, which obviously lets them avoid import duties. It will shorten lead times, reduce supply chain risk. And this particular factory specializes in skincare and sunscreen, and it is fully FDA OTC certified. So I think what that means is that we are going to see a boost in Korean sunscreens, the FDA ones, not the international ones, obviously, and, products made specifically for the US market. So that is, I guess, very good industry news, given all of the uncertainties that we have around tariffs. And I was going to do a piece on tariffs today, and then I woke up this morning and saw that they have been changed yet again. So I don't even want to put a figure in this podcast, because I know that I feel like it's going to change again. So we're not even going to go there, but there are tariffs. And let's just skip across to the next piece of news, because that one is just giving me a headache trying to keep up. So the good news for our Australian and Canadian listeners, of which there are many, hello to you, is that Aestura, which is another Ambore Pacific brand, has announced that they will be expanding to Sephora in Australia and Canada. So normally when I'm sharing sort of debut news, it's the US and everyone's like, what about my country? I feel you. I really feel you. So this is exciting news. They are a brand that positions themselves in the derma cosmetic category, but really I would say I would classify most of their products. I think they're very similar to like your CeraVe or CeraVe. I always want to call it CeraVe. I don't know why they spell it like that. CeraVe. There are other brands like that in Australia, like QV. I would call it similar to that. I'm interested to see the pricing because even in Korea, Aestura is not the cheapest brand. So I would be very interested to see how they price this in Sephora. My personal favorite, if you were to ask me, from their line is their Ado Barrier 365 Mist, which I think that is a really great product. I think I rate that more than Laneige's Cream Skin. That's my hot take. I think I like that product more. But basically, it's a sensitive skin focused beauty line, I would say. Let's keep an eye out for more details about that and more details about price in particular. That's the thing I'm really keen to sort of see how they land with that. Okay, now that was our news for the month, as it were. So, like that, there's a lot going on, like I said. On to our question of the week, and we had a question from Barbara, one of our longtime listeners. Thank you, Barbara, for always tuning in. And she gave me her permission in advance to share this question with you, so I will. She said, any suggestions for a chemical exfoliant that works for dry, sensitive skin? Thank you and keep up the great work. So obviously I've got you, dry sensitive skin. Hi, that's me. So I feel like, so you did want a chemical exfoliant. So what I said to Barbara when I wrote back to her was that if she is looking for a chemical option, something like a PHA or a low strength lactic acid is the way to go. PHAs are more hydrating and gentle than your, say, glycolic or salicylic acid, which tends to be a little bit more aggressive. There are some great PHA toner pads on the market right now, which can be a nice little intro to chemical exfoliation for sensitive skin. Your mileage may vary though. Some people with sensitive skin and rosacea find just that even that additional friction from the pads themselves to be too much stimulation, overstimulating. So just see how you go. I know for myself, I personally am always a little bit cautious with my chemical exfoliants just because, like you, I have dry, sensitive skin and I do also have rosacea, and it's just anything that it even might cause it to flare is just not really worth it for me personally. So my go-to exfoliator, and people are sometimes surprised to hear this, but it is actually a sugar scrub foam. It is our Jellicoe Cinnamon Toast Sugar Scrub Foam, and the reason I like this, apart from the fact that I made it and I had a reason for making it. I actually made it for my brother, not for myself, but that's a story for another day. I love it because it is customizable. You can melt the sugar down, the sugar crystals down in your hands. That lets you dial up or down the intensity depending on how your skin is feeling that day. And for me, I prefer total control over my exfoliation. That is why I enjoy it. If I just, am having sort of sebaceous filaments on the nose, I can go a little bit harder on the nose and then keep it really nice and gentle for the rest of my face. So that is one way I really, really like to use it. And then I guess the other reason is that the results are immediate. So one of the things that always makes me a little bit iffy with the chemical exfoliants is that you can't always tell if they're working straight away. And that leads people into issues with over exfoliation because sometimes they haven't realized that it's working right away. So they up the intensity. And then by the time you realize, it's too late. You've got over exfoliation, skin damage, and coming back from that is always just a little bit of a hassle and a process. What I like with manual exfoliators like this is that it's there. The results are right there on your face straight away. You don't have to guess. If your skin is feeling nice and baby soft afterwards, congratulations, it worked, you're done. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to, come back the next day and do it again. You can come back in a week's time and exfoliate again, and then you're done. So that's why I personally like it, even though it might sound like a strange choice for someone with rosacea. The other thing that I have been trialing out that I do also enjoy is the sebum melting pads. And again, just on the nose, you only need them once or twice a week. But for me, that is kind of where I land personally with exfoliants for my dry sensitive skin. Obviously, your mileage may vary, and if you do like a chemical option, then a PHA, something like that, might be a good one to go for. So hopefully that helps. A couple of different options depending on what you want to do, what you want to try. That's just what I've had luck with. But yeah, there you go. Hopefully that will be useful information to someone else that may also have the same skin type as Barbara and I. All right, now for a little segment that I have been calling one must, one meh, and one miss. And this week I want to do lip picks. So the whole idea for the segment is really just giving you my real unfiltered opinions, which I kind of always do anyway, but on a product that I think is awesome, a product that I think is fine but probably a pass, and a product that is just a skip and I wouldn't try it again. So without any further ado, let us get into it. My must for the week is Colorgram's Fruity Glass Gloss. And I am not going to lie, I 100% bought this because of the packaging. It is ridiculously cute to the point where my little girl, she's like, I want that. What is it? Let me have that. And I'm like, it's not for kids, all right? It's for big kids. It's really, really cute. However, the formula is a total win. I was really shocked. It's glossy. I find it pigmented. It's comfy on the lips. It's very affordable. I actually like it more than the next one that I'm going to share, which was probably 3 times the price. So if you want that glossy finish without the price tag, honestly, the Colorgram Fruity Glass Glosses, they are a win. I am going back to get more in different colors. I think I picked up 2 and I'm back. We're going back. One meh, and this is where I come to the more expensive one. So I got this for myself as a little bit of a treat. And it is the Hera Sensual Nude Gloss. And when I first tried it, I was like, oh, this is amazing. I really like it. Why did I get this? I should have stuck to something more affordable. But as time went on, I'm like, I just don't know if I love the way that it sits and feels on my lips. So the packaging is an A+. It's beautiful packaging. It's that that bougie lip tint kind of packaging that you would expect from a pricier brand. The color I also enjoy. It's not my favorite color ever. The one that I got, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's not really that important to the story. But I just feel like, so to wind it back a little bit, I have dry skin, like we just said. So I always prep my lips before I put lip products on, and the product I use to do that is our Gelato Glaze Lip Mask. So I always put that on first because otherwise lip products can sometimes settle in my lip lines and just make my lips look a little bit manky and gross. But even after I do that and prep my lips, this product, I just feel like it doesn't sit nicely. There is no other better way that I can think of to describe it. It just feels heavy and it doesn't sit properly on my lips. And that is not an issue that I have with the Colorgram Fruity Glass Gloss. So for the price, honestly, I did expect a little bit more, and I also expected more because this was the winner at last year's Glow Pick Awards. So I was kind of thinking, all right, this is going to be a home run. And when I first tried it, I loved it. But I honestly, after going through nearly the whole thing, I don't think this is a repurchase for me. There's nothing really wrong with it. It doesn't give me a, really cause my lips to have a bad reaction or anything like that. It's just not amazing. So that's it. Now, the miss among all of these lip products is the Amuse Lip Smudger. Where do I even start? So first off, this broke in the packaging pretty much straight away, which is just super annoying. And then you're using it in like that really POV way where you're trying to salvage it. Like, it's just a disaster, right? And you're touching your hands on it and it's getting everywhere. No, like, that was not great. The second thing was the color I picked. Maybe this was my bad, but I picked peach, which often works for me, and this just did not suit me at all. Didn't like the texture of it, and I hated how it wore. It did not look nice on my lips at all. It was just a miss on every front possible. So if you want a good lip smudger, do yourself a favor and get the Vanilla Co one. I'm going to hold it up if you are watching on YouTube. This is the one that I use. This one is freaking amazing. I love it. So I've been through 2 of them already, and I just went out and bought myself another 2. And this shade is PK01 Nude Rose. It is thebomb.com. Love it. So get that one instead. All right. So that is my little wrap up for the week of lip products. If you have anything else that you want me to try, recommendations, hit me up, please. I love a good lip product. And, you know, I'm always keen to break away from Remand. I feel like I just give them too much money. So come and find me if you know something else that I need to try. All right. Now, recommendation of the week, which really should be recommendation of the month, but whatever. Let's just run with the week. And I really agonized over this, you guys, because the program that I actually wanted to recommend, I'm pretty sure they don't translate it into English, but also it's really not very uplifting. I spent the first couple of episodes I watched like literally sobbing. If you are a Korean speaker and you have access to Korean Netflix, it is the Divorce Camp, that one. It is like, it's just... Oh, God, there was one girl on the show who was another foreigner living in Korea, and I just wanted to give her a hug. And I was like, why are you with this guy? Like, please, tell me where you live. I want to drive over to your house and let me pick you up. Like, please, can we take you somewhere else? Because this is not a nice guy. Anyway, but I'm not going to recommend that one just because I know most of our listeners are not going to have access to that, and that's just annoying. But if you do, then go and watch it, maybe, if you like sobbing to yourself on a Saturday night. So the one I'm going to recommend is Dear Hongran, which is streaming on Netflix Korea, but also outside of Korea. And look, you know, it's not a home run. It's not a slam dunk. It's not like my favorite drama ever or anything, but I do have a very big soft patch for the Korean historical dramas. This is a saguk, so it's set in the late Joseon dynasty. I really love how stunning they are. Like, just visually, the way they film them, it's always beautiful. The costumes are always really, really nice. And it is an interesting story. It basically tells the story of Hongrang, who is like a young nobleman, and his childhood companions as they navigate deep political conspiracies, forbidden love, devastating truths, all of this kind of thing. A couple of caveats before you dive into this, because like I said, it's not a drama without problems. Number one is that the pacing, it is a little bit strange in parts. It's more emotional storytelling, so it's not very action heavy in case you are sort of into that kind of thing. It had a very mixed reception here in Korea. People either liked it or were really like, ew. The only other thing I will say, and this is not really giving anything away, is that the romance dynamics between the leads are complicated because they are, or aren't they, siblings in the show. So I'm not going to give too much away by saying that, but like, I thought it was interesting. It had a different kind of storyline, I guess. I watched it all the way to the end, which I think is saying a lot. Like, honestly, my threshold for bad dramas is really, really low these days. I drop so many dramas that I start watching. Like, back in the day, I used to just watch everything through all the way as a rule, even if it wasn't that great. And I don't anymore. And I actually got through the whole thing of this. So I feel like that in and of itself is saying something. But yeah, that is going to be my recommendation for the week. It's not the world's best drama, but like, hey, if you've got 16 episodes to waste and don't mind a fairly decent Korean historical drama, then there you go. You can thank me later or don't. that is all I have for you for this week. If you are enjoying the current format, please let me know. If you've got suggestions, questions of the week, feedback of any kind, I am here. My DMs are open. I love hearing from you guys. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Korean Beauty Show podcast wherever you are listening, whether you are on Apple or Spotify or YouTube these days. I am now recording these episodes, which is really annoying for me because it's one more thing to edit and one more thing to worry about. But if you have been watching along on YouTube, then thank you. I know most of our listeners are still just listening along, and I do not blame you at all. That's like, who has time to sit down and watch a video, right? But if you are watching this on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next episode.